We are the Plankton, my friend. Because Plankton are our very best friend.
Good news is that there is a really great way to take CO2 out of the air, and it deals, same thing, the same solution deals with the acid. And in one word, it's plankton.
Все, что не делается, делается к лучшему. Все, что не делается, делается к лучшему. Даже если адский бадун, даже если сглазил колдун, все, что не делается, делается к лучшему. Все, что не делается, делается к лучшему.
NATO is something that makes no sense. There is no reason for it. It should have ended when the Soviet Union ended. It was just an aggressive thing, I think, mostly from the West, pretending to be a defensive alliance, but in reality, bombing Libya and, doing all kinds of crazy, bombing Serbia, and NATO is not the right idea. And it has a beautiful future by going away. And by going away, they can create a new peace.
Я так рад, что свободно живу я в России. Я так рад, что свободно живу я в России. Все, что тебе нужно сейчас, возможно, ты возьми. 'Cause I'm so glad that I'm living in Russia today. I'm so glad that I'm living in Russia today. 'Cause everything I want, well, it's right in Russia today.
Zvezda Holding presents Dynamic Spectrum Talks. Now.
Hello, dear friends. This is the Dynamic Spectrum Talks podcast. I am Anna Shamfran, and this is my colleague Yuri Lindra.
Hi.
In this studio, with the help of our esteemed guests from all over the world, different countries, we are looking for the common ground for what unites us all, the peoples of different countries, the peoples of the world, and in general, we are very similar. We all have the same aspirations, and we all solve the same problems. And in this sense, music is something that can be understood and welcomed by everyone all over the world. There are no borders and no political barriers for music. Music is loved all over the world, regardless of language, religion, tradition, and that is why, for the second time, we invited in our studio our dear guest, Alex Carlin, American musician, composer. Alex, hello.
Hello, привет всем. All right, great to be here.
Good to see you, Alex. So, a few months passed by since our last meeting, our last talk, and let's take a quick look to what has happened since that time. As we know, recently you were in Baku city in Azerbaijan to attend the 29th Conference of the Parties, COP29, which is dedicated to the United Nations Climate Change Conference.
Exactly.
So we heard it about from the local news reports.
Yeah.
So let's watch a small video, and I think the audience will like it.
Yeah.
We are the Plankton, my friend. Because Plankton are our very best friend. Because we are the Plankton. We are the Plankton. No more greenhouse effect or acidification of the ocean. Because we are the Plankton. And we are the champions of the world. Yay!
So, what was the song you played there? What was that? What was about?
Well, that was an improvisation, actually. It was amazing because I happened to be just drinking some coffee and had my guitar, And I'm thinking about Plankton because we can talk about it a little bit later, but really there is a great solution to these climate problems that really involve more than anything else plankton. And so I was just having fun with a Queen song of, we are the champions, and I was singing We Are the Plankton. I was just having fun with that. And this guy from Baku TV, this very talented, genius radio TV journalist, just was there, and he saw it, and he grabbed that moment. He captured the moment so perfectly. Even with when I played a thing with up at the top of the neck on my guitar, he zoomed in on it perfectly. Like this, I could tell his skills as a cameraman were fantastic to just catch the moment, and the sound was perfect. And he edited it into like 40 seconds. It was just a very nice montage. And what was great was that he put it on national television, this Baku TV. And I had two Russian friends who I met in Moscow who are now living in Baku who wrote me, everybody watches this. And they were writing me, Alex, I had no idea you were in Baku. I just saw you on TV, So the whole thing was very serendipitous. It was great. And I really like how the Azerbaijan media was working at that point. It was just perfect for me.
And among other things, you tried your hand at being a correspondent at this conference. Yes. Please tell us about this experience, and did you enjoy it?
Well, very, very much so, but I've done it now 11 consecutive conferences for the United Nations. I've become an expert. It just started out as a little hobby when I was living in Poland, and I happened to be in Copenhagen, and I knew somebody who was the boss of a fantastic news organization called Center for Media and Democracy. And he said, Alex, you're in Denmark. Why don't you go to the United Nations Climate Conference and do some reporting for us? Just, because he thought I was smart enough to do that. And so I did that for 2 weeks. I interviewed I had press credentials, but I was interested in interviewing the ground level, like the people from Bolivia who were like, revolutionary, marching in the streets and being in the, the lower, the grassroots level. And so I spent 2 weeks talking to these people, these activists, and I started learning about the climate thing. And so that was 2009. But by now, 2024, I've actually, for every year, for 2 weeks, I'm a journalist, and I have this credential. I can interview kings and sultans or anybody I want. I can go into every room. And I've been doing that and interviewing the smartest, most knowledgeable people about this problem. And I've really got to a point where I'm really in a good place of knowledge and understanding. And I can tell you about it. If you want to know how to solve these problems, I actually can tell you a couple of things. If we have time to do that.
Please do.
Okay, I'll make it as quick as possible. It turns out that there's two basic things. There's the overheating of the planet because the carbon dioxide traps the heat. People know about that. And then it makes the temperature too hot to work outside, too hot for farms to produce food, things like that. But the other half is that the same carbon dioxide is causing acid in the ocean that's going to kill all the fish before too long. In a very short number of years, we could have no fish in the ocean, something that big of a nightmare, that big of a disaster. So the problem that we're facing right now is that the people at these conferences and the green movement are working with like 45-year-old solutions, which are what they call emissions reduction. They're basically saying, yeah, if you get rid of the cars and the oil companies, we'll be fine. And that might have been true about 45 years ago. But now we have so much CO2 in the air, you actually have to make your priority pull that carbon dioxide out of the air. That has to be. Because even if you had no cars tomorrow and no oil companies tomorrow, you would have basically essentially the same problem. We'd be facing, a killing amount of CO2 in terms of the acid in the ocean and in terms of overheating the planet. It wouldn't fix that at all because the oil companies and cars only add 1% to the problem every year. So that can't possibly be a solution. Now, the good news is that there is a really great way to take CO2 out of the air And it deals, same thing, the same solution deals with the acid. And in one word, it's plankton. Plankton are down about 90% right now. People can look up plankton. They're these little organisms, little life forms, trillions of them. There's more plankton than stars in the sky. And they do an amazing thing. When they're back to their health, now they're way, way down, 90% in some areas. When you bring plankton back to normal historical levels of health and population, which is easy to do, which I'll explain how, when you bring it back to that level, they take out so much CO2 from the atmosphere that by 2050, in 25 years, we'll be back to a normal, safe, proven, good climate, and the overheating won't be a problem. And by a miracle, they do the same thing. They do the solution with the acid in the water. They actually prevent the CO2 and the H2O combining to that acid molecule called carbonic acid. They prevent that, and they deal with what's already in the water that's acid. So we have a wonderful solution. We call it 100 villages. And that's kind of what this is about. This Africa will be the leader thing, which I can explain. The solution really is 100 villages, fishing villages. They go out in boats into their ocean areas and put tiny amounts of food, essentially, for the plankton, little bits of dust that is just good for the plankton to eat and not die, right? And so it keeps the plankton, it brings them back very quickly, in like a year or less. It brings plankton back to their normal levels very fast. And the first thing that happens is huge amounts of fish come back, because plankton's the base of the food chain. It's not only the solution to carbon dioxide and acid, it's also the base of what fish eat, right? So the bigger fish and bigger fish and bigger fish, it all starts from the tiniest fish, which are the plankton. So that is a wonderful solution. And Africa is going to be the leader, because it seems like the USA and Europe are too busy doing other things, and we can't wait for them. They just have failed in their leadership, essentially. But Africa, which is where I've been many times in the last couple of years, is already showing their leadership in this. So you're going to have villages like in Ghana. I was just there in Ghana with an amazing guy called Martin Luther King Addo, who's starting, this project in Ghana, and guys in the other countries I've been in. It's happening in Africa. They're moving because they're facing too hot to work outside, too hot for farms to produce food, and no fish because there's no plankton. So they have these three huge problems, and we have a solution. So it's a beautiful thing. And so that's the new paradigm. The old paradigm is just get rid of those cars and oil companies. The new paradigm is just be nice to the plankton and they will, be the best solution.
You forgot to mention kill all the cows and reduce people's population, because they also create a lot of
the main solution.
The main solution, yes.
I was going to mention that. It's the same thing. Yes, it's a significant thing, but it's at most 1% per year. The real thing...
We know it. Unfortunately, people all around the world, they are thinking the way the media show them, if they start to consume less and produce less CO2, it means that the planet will be healthy. Yeah, but it's untrue, because it's a very small amount of CO2.
Yes. Absolutely, you're correct. Do the math. And now 45 years ago, they had a good point. There wasn't so much in the air. But now that CO2, carbon dioxide that's in the atmosphere now, takes 1,000 years to go away by itself. If 1,000 years. So therefore, no cows, sorry, it's not going to solve the problem. It's still going to be there unless the plankton take it out. The other solutions don't really do the math either. People want to build machines, they want to plant trees, which is all nice, but it won't. If you do the math, no, it doesn't save let's say you're talking to a 10-year-old kid in Ghana. What's going to make him have a good future? It's the only thing I've found is plankton.
By the way, in our programs, we discuss this issue very often, the real base of this problem, climate changing.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting. In the West, do many people understand the real base of this problem?
No. What I'm talking about is the new paradigm that is coming up. But it's still, if you take an average person who talks about climate, they will say, oh, of course, just get rid of cars and oil companies. We'll be fine. That's always what the news story ends with and what the interview ends with on any media. treatment of climate. It's unbelievable. So I'm reaching out, of course, to those media organizations to try to educate them and bring them into the new paradigm. But it will be very soon, as soon as it's been done 10 years ago, by the way, in Alaska. There's a great man whose name is Russ George, who was working with a tribe in Canada called the Haida, and they did an absolutely fantastic version of this, and they brought back the plankton, and the fish came back in historical numbers. So this is something that's real.
It works.
What?
It works.
It totally works. Of course it does. And it's pioneering. But it's going to be, as the numbers start coming in, everybody's going to want to do it because it's such small money. It takes almost no money to do this. Like the other solutions are $1 trillion for this and $1 trillion rubles for that. This takes just small numbers of millions to bring back hundreds of millions of dollars of fish, if you want to talk about that.
It's not interesting because you don't need money at all. But if you are talking about green agenda, you need a lot of money to provide this.
Business.
But when people, and I believe, by the way, I said, we're not waiting for USA, we're not waiting for Europe. Africa will be the leader, and I can play the song I wrote about it and talk about the campaign. But I also believe Russia will be the leader in this. We have some indications that Russia is going to be the leader along with Africa.
Interesting solution. As usual, we know about you. You every time suggest very original solutions.
Right.
Is it your idea or whose?
Okay, now this thing, I learned it from Russ George. And, we can put his website on the description of this, in the interview section for people to look at his website. But he's the guy who took it. He didn't invent it. He got it from John Martin, who died. But you can look up John Martin, NASA. He's just one of the most respected scientists in history. They build statues to him at NASA. He's really great. He was the one, as an oceanographer, he's had a famous moment in history when people started talking about global warming in the 80s. He stood up at a meeting of oceanographers and says, "Oh, you want to deal with global warming? Well, give me," he called it a ship of this nutritional dust for plankton, and I will give you an ice age. Don't worry about global warming. We can bring it because plankton blooms have come before every ice age. It's the oceans that determine the climate more than anything. Plankton, more than anything, determines the climate. And over history, before every ice age, there's been plankton blooms because they generate so much photosynthesis. That's the key word, photosynthesis. People talk about the Amazon as the lungs of the planet, but really we get more of our oxygen from plankton than we do from the Amazon. Most of it comes from underwater. We're the ocean planet. If you look at us from Mars, we're blue, right? And most of the land, a lot of the land is uninhabitable. Most of the the things that would be called biology or life is underwater. We just don't see it.
Biodiversity.
Yeah, well, biodiversity and just biomass and just, biology and just life. Most of it, we're the ocean planet and we don't see it. We just see a flat blue color. But under that is where the action is and where the solutions are.
Alex, I suggest you to join me to some time travel. Last time we spoke a lot about your past, about your life, but we left something behind. Some very interesting and unique facts.
Yeah.
First of all, in the early 70s, you were one of the co-founders of the band, the Rubinos.
The Rubinos!
The Rubinos! Yeah. I tried to pronounce it several times correctly, but now I made a mistake. The Rubinos.
Absolutely.
And for a while, this group topped the charts of the UK and the United States. Especially thanks to the hit Rock and Roll is Dead.
We don't care is the other part of the title.
And we don't. Okay. And you still play the song even today.
Yes, right.
So there are two versions, the old one and the new one. So now I suggest we will watch it and then discuss.
Okay.
I used to do the pony, now you start to twist. Although my horse did die, never even in a world we missed. Oh,
So, from my perspective, the modern version is better. What about you?
As usual, I prefer classic. I prefer original.
Yeah.
In general, Rubinos, I asked, by the way, Google, Rubinos, yes?
Rubinos.
Is a real legend of its time.
They still exist. They still play recently in Spain, and they're doing all kinds of shows.
So, my question is, why did you leave the band? What happened? And tell us something about this period of your
No, it's a fantastic period of my life. You got to understand, I was 12 years old when we're talking about, and I had a band with John Rubin of the Rubinos, the main singer. John and I had a band before the Rubinos when we were 10 or 9. So you have to understand, and we've been best friends ever since. And Tommy Dunbar is the main musical genius of the Rubinos. He wrote the riff to "Rock and Roll Is Dead," and I can talk about this. But all these people are still my closest friends to this day, which is, more than 50 years later. So just to give you a context, whatever happens, and we're in and out of the same bands, and they created Psychotic Pineapple, by the way, which is the next band I was in. So it's all a mix. So the fact that I was in the band and then out of the band, that was partly because I was 12 or something, and they had this idea. There were 6 people. They took 3 people out because they had a concept. They wanted to go squeaky clean pop, like they wanted to be the most pop-oriented thing, and I think they saw myself and Ralph, the drummer, and Danny, the sax player, as being like more of a hardcore rock and roll guys, and they wanted to go squeaky clean pop. It was just something. But we're all best friends and in other bands together. It was, you know what I mean? But it was like that I left because they were going on that different direction, and then I was in the band later. So it's like I was in and out of that band. I played a number of concerts with them after that. So you have to understand, we're just friends. We're all together. Technically, when they had the top 40 hits, I was not in the band, right? But they were, we were forming Psychotic Pineapple, which did that version of Rock and Roll Is Dead. And by the way, I was just yesterday, last night, working on another version of Rock and Roll Is Dead that my band, Alex Carlin band, my Russian band, we played at Sandler Fest. Igor Sandler has a festival every year in VDNH. And I was just amazed at how much I liked our version of Rock and Roll Is Dead just recently in VDNH. So the song lives. And I can tell you the story of how it got written if you want, but it's just a good song. And a good song is if it lasts 50 years, it must be a good song.
Very true. 50 years of success is something, some sort of unique story.
Yeah.
Another group, if we're talking about the bands you played and still playing, another famous band named Alien Beachhead.
Yes, interestingly enough.
Could you play maybe something from the repertoire of the group, of the band?
Yeah, I can do that because we had, in 1990, we were here for 6 months in the Soviet Union, and I'll play a little bit of this song that was on Dvazhdy Dva, Komerchiyskiy Kanal. It was telling the story of our band, and we would go to bars and it would be up there on the screen, and people were recognizing us on the metro and all this kind of stuff. And here was the song. I just got to say though, I have to mention the guys in the band. It was Peter French is the drummer, an unbelievable drummer. I could tell you stories about, we would have rehearsals in Dzerzhinsky, and there would be like 20 kids from the neighborhood just standing around him because he was we called him the elephant, Slon. He was just this force of nature on drums, just unbelievable player. And he would just be warming up and practicing, and people were like, wow, what's that? So I had this great drummer, and then amazing partner, the bass player, Bill Macbeth. And Bill was an unbelievable songwriter, and he brought this song to the band, and I worked on it with him. It's called Eaten Alive, and that's the one that we put on the video. So it goes something like...
All washed out, hang up to dry. Bullshot ears and bloodshot eyes. Every day I'm wondering why. You just wanna make sparks fly. I'm paranoid, paralyzed. Your love is eating me alive. is eating me alive. My life's a mess, I can't hold a job. My friends say I've turned into a slob. I want it so bad that I just can't quit. It's a love roller coaster and it's making me sick. Fun last night at the show. Turned around, said it's time to go. Didn't come back for a week and a half. You just wanna have the last laugh. I'm paranoid, paralyzed. Your love is eating me alive. Your love is eating me alive. Your love is eating me alive.
Bravo!
Bravo!
So that was something that, that was the style. You got to remember, Peter French, our drummer, was into like John Bonham and playing all this incredible. We had that rhythm kind of feel. And so here we were playing in Ukrainsky SSR, Zhytomyr, Vinnytsia, Odessa. Incredible experiences in Kiev, played at the Sportivny Zal. And Odessa was amazing. Like after the show at the Zelyony Theater, we were walking along the Black Sea and people were all playing. Just everywhere you were, people had guitars and were singing and playing and, playing incredible songs that I would later learn. And then we went to Ural. We had this huge concert in Nizhny Tagil, where that turned into a movie that turned into a whole other story where this teenage kid met us after the show, and he turned into a colleague of mine now, like 25 years later. He's a movie director, and we're making movies together, But then we went all the way to Lake Baikal. And I remember swimming in Lake Baikal in 1990. It's a great memory.
At what season?
Oh, it was summer.
I have never been to Baikal, by the way.
Me too.
Oh, you can really see like 20 meters down. It's so clear and so beautiful. There was an ecological meeting there too, I remember. Anyway, so I have a million memories, and I fell in love with Russia during that tour, of course. But it took a while to come back.
Alex, these days you mostly perform with your Alex Carlin band.
Yes, my Russian band.
Your Russian band. So
Denis Matuizzo on drums and Andrei Samoylov on the bass.
Correct. So you mostly play in Russia and at the, let's say, space of the Commonwealth of Independent Countries.
Right, exactly.
So, last time you were in our studio, you played one of your songs. It was dedicated to the Russian railway station. And please, could you please do it an encore? Yes?
One more time.
Am I right? One more time. But now with the song, everything that is not done is done for the best.
Well, yeah.
Все, что не делается, все к лучшему.
Yeah, now it's in English. Doesn't quite have the wisdom and the resonance it does in Russian. It's a mysterious and mystical wisdom and truth that I've found to be very useful in my life. This все, что не делается, делается к лучшему. If you try to translate it in English, it just sort of sounds like, well, I guess so, kind of, maybe, yeah, right. But in Russian, it has real wisdom to it. It's hard to translate. But if you spend 20 minutes, you can explain it to an English-speaking person. It's possible. But it was such a great phrase to me that I decided to make it a song, right? So, and actually, when I start singing it, everybody sings along and they immediately get it. So it's a big hit for us. It goes like this. Всё, что не делается, делается к лучшему. Всё, что не делается, делается к лучшему. Даже если адский бадун, даже если сглазил колдун, всё, что не делается, делается к к лучшему. Все, что не делается, делается к лучшему. Все, что не делается, делается к лучшему. Даже если твой концерт отменили, даже если тебя менты избили, все, что не делается, делается к лучшему. Все, что не делается, делается к лучшему. Даже если пандемика, если ты не сможешь закупить билеты для Металлика,
I didn't know before that moment that this is the favorite phrase. This must be the favorite phrase for a rock and roller.
oh yeah.
A very Russian phrase, and I didn't know that it's a phrase of rock and
No,
roll.
whenever anything bad happens to me, I actually use that. I say, "Всё, что не делается, делается к лучшему." And
Alex.
it just, it works. You know, it makes you think, well, maybe.
Positive thinking. You know, Alex, when I was a child, one of my favorite songs were «Привет с большого Будуна», but I was young and I didn't understand that it's about hangover. But now you performed almost the same, so it reminded me about, childhood.
But there is some deep mystical under meaning to this whole thing that I think only Russians can really understand, because they've been through so much, World War II and, all these things that are so much more deeply negative than what most Americans have gone through, for example. But I think there's something, some deep truth to it that would take us another hour to talk about.
Alex, you start performing Russian songs. So this is the reason why I must to ask you the obvious question. Are you planning to release maybe a Russian album?
Well, here's the thing.
Language.
It's great. We recently recorded a new album and very recently found a label to release the album. So we're really excited about this. This is our third album, Alex Carlin Band. And this one, we've got a label in Russia releasing it it's really gonna be fantastic because they support it. When we do concerts, they're gonna be supporting the concerts and they're gonna be putting it on all the platforms. The album will be on all the platforms and they're gonna push it with promo. They're really great people. And it's called Patriot Records or Patriot something. It's which apparently has nothing to do with anything political. It's just a name that they kind of randomly chose, but they're really great people and it's a great company and we're just really excited about it. So that's, and of the 12 songs, one of them is that, what I just played, another one is that Yani Alcoholic. So those two in Russian are both on the album. The album is called Dig Deep, which is one of the songs. So we have 12 of my songs that I wrote. They're all originals. And we're really happy about this release. It looks like on January 17th, we're going to be having a party, a celebration, to release the album. Probably on that club on Arbat Street called 21, but we're trying to talk to them about getting a date in middle of January so people can pay attention and look for that. Alex Carlin Band releasing our album in Moscow.
Next time I will definitely will ask you to play Yani Alcoholic. For me, it sounds very unusual. I need to hear it.
Well, people really, respond to that song and they interact. And on the recording, you can hear, I took my microphone, I spent a lot of time in St. Petersburg, and I had some bars that called Flamel was the latest one that I used to spend a lot of time in. And I took my microphone and to record the people, and we put that into the recording on the album, and you can hear people responding in a very entertaining way to the song. So it's kind of got a live feel to it. So we do some experimentation on the album.
It's very interesting for me. So what is to be an American? For me is who is American?
It's a good.
This
You
is
know
the
what? I'll tell you.
person who works hard, who dreams to become a millionaire, and so on and so on. And what is to be a rock star or rock and roller?
I will tell you. I sum it up this way. I don't call it the United States of America. I call it the United States of rock and roll. And that's, to me, the best part of America. I mean, there's some great movies and, some great culture and the Bill of Rights, which originally was from Persia 2,000 years earlier. The original Bill of Rights was actually from Persia. But we have a great Bill of Rights 2,000 years later. That I'm proud of, right? I mean, there's certain things America's done that you can be very proud of. But, murdering the Indians and slavery, there's a lot of challenges we have in our history, right, to being something to be happy about. But rock and roll, I mean, we brought rock and roll to the world. I mean, that's America.
It's very difficult to understand this thing. This is a portrait of classic American on the one hand, and this is a portrait of classic rock and roller. Yes, a rock musician.
Typical, I would say.
Typical, yes, but it can't be.
Well, I think
compared, yes.
I don't know. I think that if you took a random picture of a rock and roller in America, that would be a typical American to me. I mean, to me, what's beautiful about America is if you take an average person walking down the street and hand them a guitar, they can probably rock. That's in our blood. Whereas I think we talked about this before, like a Russian, you give them a pen and they can write an incredible something in literature. That's more in Russians' blood, I think. Although there's good musicians here, there's great musicians here, but to me, America is more about the music. And I think that's beautiful. I look on the positive side. The negative side, I don't know. Every country, every culture has a negative side. I'm not sure what you mean about what's the contradiction between rock and roll and USA. I think it's the same.
Because now we are communicating with you, and I understand that we have a picture of United States of America, which was suggested us from the official media and so on and so on. And
give me an example of that. I just want to make sure I understand you. What's an example?
American Dream, probably. If from zero to hero, something like that.
You mean like a big house in the suburbs with a big car and a big TV?
Something like that.
Yeah, to me, that's the negative side. I think it's fine. I have nothing against people having a big house and a big car and a big TV. But to me, it's kind of boring, right? That's just like, I'm not interested in that. It's too quiet and too controlled, and it's like walking on eggs, I don't like that. I prefer the old city in Eastern Europe with, just some dark thing and really the opposite of that. That's why I left America 25 years ago, so I could hang out in Poland and Russia and Czech Republic and, in Serbia. It's like, that was my dream. My American dream was to leave America, really. But I really appreciated being a child in America, and because of the music, I was surrounded by Tommy Dunbar, guys who play guitar so fantastically well, and just, it's the music and the mix of black people, Mexican, white, just everybody mixed together playing fantastic music. That's America. That's the beauty of America. And then it became, big house, big car, it's just too much boring for me.
What I try to ask you, for me, typical American man is Trump, but not you.
Oh.
But when now...
Trump, yeah. TV personality, Trump, yeah.
According to the media, the typical successful American is Donald Trump.
Yes, but now we are communicating with you, and I understand that we are very similar.
The typical American is like Alex Carlin.
Yes.
Well, yeah, I mean, typical is a statistical average.
Common, yes.
I'm not sure about that. We could talk about statistical average, but I'm just saying the essence of what's good about America is more in the rock and roll area than in the TV star Donald Trump area. I would say, in my opinion, it's like there's two, the one good thing about Donald Trump is he said some nice words about Russia. Okay, he said some positive words like, "Hey, why can't we be friends?" If we could leave it at that, let's just end it there with Trump, because we'll just call it a day at that point. But he did say a couple words, whereas the other politicians in America only say negative things. You know, they're just completely wrong. You know, it's like, but at least Donald Trump said some nice words about Russia. You know, that's a good thing.
Alex, we are running out of time, but I need to ask you the final question for today.
Why final question? We just began to communicate. I just began to ask questions. After you're playing,
At the end, we will ask Carlin to play once again. In any case, the very important question, because you just touched the ground right now, when you mentioned Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Last time we talked with you, you said that you have some concerns about the current trend to isolate Russia internationally.
Right.
So, what has changed since the time?
Yeah.
Do you see the light at the end of the tunnel?
Do. That's amazing you say that, because just recently I did. Like Lavrov just said, you know, the foreign minister of Russia just gave an interview with the American journalist Tucker Carlson, and he said something that made me think my peace plan is more relevant today than it was before. And I want to just quickly explain that. So Lavrov said, hey, well, we want to negotiate the end of this problem we have with Ukraine right now. We want to have some negotiations and come up with a plan where Ukraine can get security guarantees from a number of countries. And that just made me think, wait a minute, my peace plan, which is called Urampa, which is get rid of NATO. Just forget NATO. It should be gone. There's no reason for it. You can replace it with Urampa, which is those NATO countries plus Ukraine plus Russia, like they wanted when the Soviet Union ended, like Gorbachev wanted, like Putin wanted, really. He suggested, and like a lot of Americans wanted it at the beginning. But the sort of the worst elements of the Western leaders said no, and they took power, and they said, we don't want to include Russia in anything at all. We just want to maybe bring it down even, right? So that was their agenda. So, but I'm saying, wait a minute. I wrote it out. I published it, and I had Noam Chomsky, Jeffrey Sachs, Vladimir Posner. I had all these people saying, yeah, Alex, that's a pretty good idea. You have like Russia, Ukraine, and these European countries together in a new peace alliance, a new alliance called Urampa. Forget NATO, and everybody wins, right? Like Russia wins. Russia could end NATO and end that threat. And then Ukraine would get a great outcome, a great situation where they would be equal to the other countries with security guarantees. And Europe would win because, you know, Germany's economy is going so negative and so bad. They would get back to having their economy back and safe. They would have no threat of the war. And so it's a great plan. And if you just Google it, you can read my plan, right? So I think that and Trump, here's the thing, like Trump is a kind of a guy who just could agree, because what Chomsky and Sachs and Posner, they all said to me, Alex, yeah, Russia could agree, Ukraine could agree, but these Americans are never going to agree. But now with Trump, he's so unpredictable that he might agree to it, you know, whereas the previous leaders were not going to agree to it, something like that. So I see a light at the end of the tunnel, absolutely. And I think we're going to, because then, you know, right now, Russia, what does Russia need? It's in Russia's interest to get back with Europe, because Russia is a European country. They should be part of a European alliance, and they don't need, you know, as we can see what happened in Syria, they don't need all this crazy stuff going on in the Middle East. It's not useful. Like right now, they need to be, it's in Russia's interest, I think, and Ukraine's interest and Europe's interest to put together this Urampa peace alliance. And just, that is the light at the end of the tunnel.
Do you believe that now we are closer for this?
Yeah. I think
for this
after
peace?
the Trump election and after what happened in the Middle East and what's going on with Germany, realizing that they have no economy without Russia, they need to. It's ridiculous. Germany was the engine of Europe, and now they're not, or they're going down really fast, mainly because they have this problem with Russia. And that needs to be worked out. That's something that adults can, get together and negotiate and figure out and create, a new arrangement, and I think, it's as Europeans, it's a Europe problem. And and Russia's Europe, and Ukraine's Europe, and they're all Europe, and they should have Europe. And NATO is something that makes no sense. There's no reason for it. It should have ended when the Soviet Union ended. It was just an aggressive thing, I think, mostly from the West, pretending to be a defensive alliance, but in reality, bombing Libya and, doing all kinds of crazy, bombing Serbia. And NATO is not the right idea. And it has a beautiful future by going away, and by going away, they can create a new peace.
To support this, let's say, peaceful agenda and the hope for peace settlement, could you play something positive at the end?
Absolutely, but I was thinking that the thing I want to play is about, it's something like this in Russian. It goes like.
Так рад, что свободно живу я в России. Я так рад, что свободно живу я в России. Все, что тебе нужно сейчас, возможно, ты возьми. 'Cause I'm so glad that I'm living in Russia today. I'm so glad that I'm living in Russia today. Everything I want, well, it's right in Russia today. I went to Chelyabinsk, I went to Shadrinsk, Tambov and Rostov and Saratov. Well, you should see the Black Sea, Sochi and Krasnodar, Ekaterinburg, don't forget Orenburg, and don't forget St. Petersburg. Well, come on, yeah, and go to the east. Wild, it's the wild, it's the wild, it's the wild, wild east, baby. Wow! Ah, yeah!
Wow! It was cool.
But how could you explain this for your American friends? So why do you glad to be in Russia?
Well, part of it you can't explain. It's just a feeling. Every time I cross the border back into Russia, I just get this feeling of warmth and like positive mentality and physical. Everything is just, I feel like, oh, I'm back in Russia. I feel great. And it's like coming home for me somehow. And then in a positive sense, a real home. And then to explain it to an American, I don't know. It's like, what can you say? It's like, okay, I can say this. It's something, this is how I do explain it. I say it's something about the flow, like a river. My life, when I'm in Russia, it flows in a certain way really well. And like every day I'm getting a phone call from like Radio Zvezda, you want to do an interview, or somebody wants to do a concert, or they want me to, go to a party or something. It's just an incredible flow. And where other countries, okay, but it's not as good. It's the best in Russia of anywhere. And although I had a fantastic time recently in Azerbaijan and in Georgia and Georgia, amazing, and in actually Dagestan, which is technically part of Russia, but Makhachkala, fantastic. So, but to me, but Russia is the best for me. It's just, it's my unique. I'm just talking about myself. I'm not talking about for everybody. But for me, it's the best.
When you are in our studio, it seems that we are very, very, very similar. I have never been to America. Maybe I will visit United States in future.
In a distant future.
Yes, in a distant future.
No, absolutely. Our conversation, our rapport, our ability to converse with each other without even thinking about it is very, very good if you characterize, the quality of our conversation. That's what I'm talking about. We do have that common thing together. It's something in common that I find I have with Russians more than any other group, really.
And you don't see Russians as a different type of people. So I think from your perspective, as I understood you correct, you find not just a lot of commonalities, but basically same language, not technically, but there is no differences to communicate, to do things together.
I guess you'd call it the subtext. The underneath meaning is we're on the same wavelength. We're on the same place. We're in the same place in terms of who we are in our lives and what we're interested in and our sense of humor and all those things. So it's a great... it's a great connection. It's natural, and I don't even think about it. It just is. But I do notice, I guess, if I go to another country, even back to USA, it's like, okay, it's not as good, for me, the connections and the flows. But it can be great. I love Africa. I love South America. I love USA, in many respects. And Europe, I have a good time anywhere I'm at, really, but it's the best in Russia, that's all.
And we like to also welcome you in our studio. You bring also a lot of fun and joy to our place.
Well, that's an American thing. I do love American. I love American culture for the fun and the can-do attitude. We can do anything. We can solve any problem, and we can have fun. There is a fun thing that I grew up with. I grew up in the 60s and, the early 70s, and it was all about having fun. There's no doubt in a good way. So, yeah, you got to have fun. And I can even say that for rock and roll. I'm not interested in the bands that are too serious, like they're just so serious in their music. No, rock and roll has to have fun. And so in other words, AC/DC, like Bon Scott, had a great sense of humor. And the second singer was okay. He could sing, but he didn't have a sense of humor. So that's the classic difference. To me, Bon Scott is amazing, And because of his sound and but the fact that he has a sense of humor. Kurt Cobain, the Beatles were a comedy group when they started. They were doing, and their producer was a comedy producer. I'm just saying that the Beatles were funny, They were they could be the Marx Brothers. They could be, that's how they were. And so I think you nailed it. You made an important point that you got to have fun. You have to have a sense of humor.
Every time you are in our studio, you bring with you absolutely unique atmosphere. And it's a pity that we have all over the world this mainstream media, which creates another picture of our reality. And
Russia, people have no idea what Russia's about. They get nothing. Essentially. They get no information. They get a couple of photos of something and some negative commentary. That's all they get. So, we need to bring to Russia, I do the best I can to bring to America that, things about Russia that they should see. They should just, obviously, we want to prevent World War III. We want to prevent nuclear bombs. We want to, and to do that, we need to communicate. We need to talk. Back when they had a problem in Cuba, remember the Cuban Missile Crisis, Kennedy was talking to Khrushchev. Now they're not really talking. Nobody, Russia and America aren't talking on the high level, the low, anyway, just us. We're talking, So this is really important.
This is called people's diplomacy.
Yeah.
This is our main aim, people level. Yes.
No, absolutely. This is fantastic what we're doing. And I send these links to my American connections and friends and websites. So, we need to get this moving. Because people like Scott Ritter are doing a great job. People I admire in the media who are saying, hey, Judge Napolitano has a great show that's trying to do this. There are people, the Gray Zone, there are really great things going on in USA in the media. But they're not major media, but they get millions of followers. I would say those three come to mind, Scott Ritter, Gray Zone, and Judge Knapp. But there's more, and there's some good ones. Democracy Now! Is doing some good things. So there is stuff going on, but the major CNN or the Fox or the BBC, the big major legacy medias are not doing a good job.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
But we will stay positive, and with your help and with the help of other like-minded people, like we are, we'll break this ice, definitely. I have no doubts about it.
I agree with you, yeah.
We have no other choices just to win.
Yes, really.
Yeah.
So, thank you very much, Alex.
Thank
it was
you guys.
a great pleasure to talk to you and to listen to your perfect music.
No, I love this show, and I'd like to come back next time.
We're happy that you are with us. Thank you very, very, very much.
Спасибо.
We'll definitely see each other again.
Спасибо большое.
Zvezda Holding presents Dynamic Spectrum Talks. Now.